Digital 410 Productions proudly presents the What's in Your Head podcast.
Digitized live from
your company name here.
Studios in Cape Coral, Florida. It's the What's in Your Head podcast with your hosts Gordon and Don Abernathy.
What's up, what's up, what's up, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the What's in Your Head podcast. It's Wednesday, and we're back. We're consistently inconsistent. Speaking of consistently inconsistent, how are you doing tonight, Gordon?
I'm consistently inconsistent, but I'm actually doing well because the Golden Knights are one game away. They are sweeping the Dallas Stars so far in the conference final. If we can score one more win, we may be facing, I'm thinking, Florida for the Stanley Cup.
This will be hockey, presented to you by two cities where it's constantly over 90 degrees.
They got the money, they can get the talent. Obviously,
ain't that the truth?
Well, there is the salary cap issue, but and that's where Vegas has got a lot of records because there's what they've been able to do with the salary cap. Their first year going to the finals, and then,
he said celery cap.
That's what I thought.
Celery.
Gordon, can you turn your mic up a little bit because Mike's a little hotter than you, and both of you coming through the same channel. And I don't want to turn him down and turn you up every time.
Test. Oh, wait a second.
Their levels are about even with mine now. Mike, you talk a little bit.
Voice.
See,
yo, dog.
Perfect.
What
We're
up?
all good.
Yeah, what's up?
How you doing, Mike?
I'm back.
It's
been a couple of
Nobody
weeks.
asked, but
Where,
how are you doing?
Where'd
bud?
you go?
I was on a couple of week hiatus. Doing good. Life is good. Things are working in a forward moving.
So were you on a
progression?
sabbatical for a couple of weeks?
Sure.
No, I think sabbaticals usually involve a study and or life
Travel.
relaxation.
Mm-hmm.
Mike's been more playing the by proxy homesteader.
Oh, that's right.
How is life as a homesteader in Florida, Mike?
There's lots of bugs.
It's all right.
Is it everything it cracked up to be?
No.
And you're doing it by proxy.
Yeah.
What do you mean by proxy?
He's doing it for other people.
Oh shit.
He had a family
That's-
member.
that's the practice round. So he figures out what gets fucked up, and then he knows when he does it himself what mistakes not to make.
Well, he had a family member who, much like ours, suffered from hurricane damage to a catastrophic level. Actually, worse than our father.
Yeah.
And they pretty much lost everything.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm speaking out of turn, tell me to shut up, Mike. And so basically, this group did some looking around, and they actually found, hey, we can actually get some undeveloped property and a nice duplex, a double extra wide, put it up on foundation, kind of like our aunt did, and have a full basement, the whole 9 yards. But as I said, the land is undeveloped, which means no water, no electricity.
Mm-hmm.
And Mike's a plumber.
Well, hey, at least digging in dirt down there is easy. Except for it all fills back in.
Well, the problem is, how deep were you digging, Mike?
What is code?
2 feet.
No.
Yep.
What else were you
right.
digging?
What else was I digging?
Didn't you have to help assist when they were digging their well?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
How
Let's
deep
see.
do you have to go for a well there?
The last two, well, we didn't dig, like a well company came in and drilled the well.
Yep.
So
Typical.
they put in the 4-inch sleeve and, put in the concrete.
Well, you need a
Do
pretty
you pay a guy to walk around with a divining rod? There's
Yeah.
water everywhere.
Yeah.
you need a pretty tall fucking ladder to put the drills the well in yourself.
Yeah. If I was going to do it, I'd be pretty high up there and I would need a really,
gonna say, it's
really
kinda
strong
like a-
drill.
You know,
that rig probably stands, 15, 20 feet high for that
Something
big?
like that.
You know-
yeah. I've never seen like well drilling
Mhm.
done.
I've seen it on a homestead rescue, but somewhere throughout time there was a redneck with a ladder and a post hole founder saying, I got this. Don't worry about it.
But yeah, I mean, it's going good. I mean, it sucks that it's this time of the year when it starts to creep into summer and rainy season, and
You saying it's swamp ass season?
well, yeah, and the love bugs are out fucking, so
Sand, mosquitoes.
and the skeeters and all that. But yeah, I mean, we dropped 100 and what did we drop? 110 feet of 1.25 inch PVC down into a 4-inch sleeve with a like a 35-pound, maybe 30-pound pump.
How many horsepower?
At the end of
is
it, 1 horse.
1 horse. So if I take that to
1 horse. And we dropped that down. We did that not last weekend, but the weekend before we did that. And we dug 200-foot, roughly 100-foot, 2-foot deep trenches to run the well 1-inch piping all the way up to the house for the well equipment. And the wonderful county that my family decided to purchase in said, hey, we'll do you a solid. And if you dig the well and put dig the trench and put the conduit in yourself, you get a discount. So we already had to have the machine
on the permit.
No. On the if they had to do it, it was extra.
It's a government job.
Well, I work in construction, so I'm trying to figure the angle.
Yeah. So if we put in the conduit and dug the trench and put it because they didn't want to do it overhead. So they decided to spend the extra money to go underground. And
so the county's responsible for the water there? No water rights?
No. This is the conduit for the electrical.
Oh, yeah.
So it was a 2-inch conduit pipe run from the pole all the way up to the house. And they basically said you'll get a discount if you guys do that. So
you didn't prime that pipe, did you?
No.
I always thought that was crazy. That water pipe had to have primer on it, but electrical is just the glue.
Yeah. I mean,
stick and twist.
Water piping. Well, I mean, the biggest difference with that is that water piping is under pressure and conduit's not. So, but yeah, that's 200 feet plus another 110 feet. So 310 feet total of piping we did not this past Saturday, but the Saturday before. And this past Saturday, we started building the framework for the subframe for the garage.
Oh, there you go.
So we put in, I convinced him to buy a gas-powered auger as opposed to a post hole digger.
Oh, yeah. That's a world of difference.
Yeah, especially when you're dropping, 2-foot 4x4s, at least 1.5 foot down into the ground, and you've got, I think we counted 21 of them that we have to do. So
now you putting sonotubes in for your footers, or you doing sonotubes and footers, or is this direct burial?
Direct burial.
Really?
Yeah, it's all pressure treat, ready to go. So I mean, but the plan is
of the footers from a wind standpoint. Even my patio cover had to have footers. They're 27 inches deep.
Well, here's the thing with like podunk.
Sorry, I asked.
I'm sorry.
No, it's not that. It's just we're all into this, but I'm thinking our audience is like, I didn't tune in to figure out
hot construction talk
down to the code standards of sonotubes, how much concrete and how much rebar you lay to tie it all together.
Just call me curious.
Kind of, taking a step back. Here's the thing with podunk counties in Florida is it's one of those things where you go, hey, do I need a permit for this? And they go,
I got the answer for that. It all depends on how tall the trees are that border your property.
There you go.
If they can't see it, there's nothing wrong.
There you go. So yeah, I mean, we're just kind of putting it together. I mean, we're doing it right, but I mean, we're just kind of doing it as inexpensively as possible.
Nope, that makes sense.
So it'll be strong. It'll be strong and rigid once it's all.
You just got to slap and say it ain't going anywhere, right?
Exactly. I think we're going to probably dig out some of the outer posts and do a little bit of concrete filler. That way, everything's kind of nice and tucked in there. So,
There
but
you
yeah,
go.
that's been my last 2 Saturdays, and we've been done by between 12 and 2 o'clock on Saturday. And then by the time I get home, I unload my truck, I take a shower, and
Pass the
I have
fuck out.
I have a beer, I have some food, and then I'm done for the rest of the day. I'm out.
Speaking of beer and food, it's been a while
Yeah, we
since
got a big beer and food weekend coming up.
it's been a while since I had a bottle of Larceny up in this piece. I've been drinking the $9 wine. And Carrie mentioned she wanted some ice cream before I went on the air, and I just got home from the gym. You ever kind of get quietly shamed by the guy in front of you at the grocery store checkout line?
For buying ice cream?
So I went to the liquor store and got a new bottle of Larceny, which, by the way, apparently Larceny has a new brand out called Barrel Proof. The shit's $80 a bottle. I went with the old school stuff. It's $30 a bottle, but I'm wondering what the hell the difference between the new Barrel Proof and the other one, but that's neither here nor there.
I thought it was going to be called something like shoplifting.
Yeah. And so I went over to, I put the Larceny in the truck, and I waddled over to Publix to get some ice cream, and
Why did you waddle?
because I'm fat, and that's what fat people do. We waddle. And so I waddled over to Publix, and I went down the ice cream aisle.
Don't even say that. I don't want to hear shit.
That's some fucking body dysmorphia you got going over there, dude.
And, well, you don't see the YouTube videos before I edit them. You want to
through a skinny filter.
It wasn't until I started editing YouTube videdos that I realized how loud of a breather I am.
Well, that's
And-
just our favorite trait.
How much weight I've gained since 2022. But anyhow, I waddled down to the aisle to get ice cream, and it was buy one get one free. So I got that. I had to get 2 of those, of course. And some of that chocolate shit you put on top that hardens into the ice cream shell.
Oh, Jesus.
And then, of course, I had to get a Mountain Dew to drink on the way home. But then I also had to get a Coke to mix my Larceny with. And so I go in line. I set down 2 things of ice cream, some chocolate shell, Mountain Dew, and a Coke. And
Here's my order of diabetes.
the guy in front of me has kale, salad mix, a thing of tomatoes, a thing of carrots, some Smart Water, and I'm thinking, yeah, he's got all this diet stuff,
but,
and I bought a soda to drink home until I got to my other soda that I was mixing with my bourbon that I'm about to drink after going to the gym for 30 minutes.
I don't think you have to worry. I was there recently. I think I was at the Walmart on Cleveland and something or other, and let's just say the shape of the people around there
Oh, you're talking about you were in Walmart? Yeah, you're in North Fort Myers. Yeah,
was a little weeble wobbly.
dude, it's insane when it's common occurrence for 30-year-olds to use the Rascal scooters. That's a fucking problem.
Yeah, believe me, we got it here.
Yeah, because you see all the fat fucks in the Midwest heading out that way. And we're not talking about your daily fat fucks. We're talking about the people that were didn't get approved to go on my 600-pound life to talk to Dr. Nazardan. Those cats are around everywhere. And it's insane. I was watching a clip. Mike, you're in the you're a weekend warrior. You're in the Army National Guard, or was it the reserves?
Guard.
So you went through boot camp and all that and had to meet physical standards. The Army is having
A long time ago, yes.
the Army is was having such a difficult time not getting people to enlist, but meeting the PT standards for base model before you get into boot camp.
Yeah.
And they're having a problem with
the girl standards.
No, they didn't lower their standards, but here's what they did. They figured we need people. Last year or 2022, they only got 75% of their needed new recruits. But here's what they did. Not only the PT side of it, but the academic, meeting the minimum test scores.
Oh,
Obviously,
Lord.
this isn't the Army of yesteryear. We had to learn how to read a map. There's a lot more, technical aspects, and, I'm sure math requirements are quite up there. So they actually started
1 + 1 is chair.
They started a pre-boot camp now. They have what people affectionately call the Army Fat Camp and the Army Academic Camp. And so, if you don't meet the physical or the intellectual standards to actually enlist at the recruitment center, they actually send you to this pre-Army camp where they work. You got 90 days to get within I don't know, 6 pounds of the minimum requirement, or 90 days to get in to meet the academic standard. And they've actually had success by pushing these kids through a pre-boot camp to get them to lose the weight, and so that when they go into boot camp, they're still at the minimum standard, but they've already lost 30, 40 pounds. And they've kind of already got a regimen built.
I would watch that reality show. They need to put that out there.
Yeah.
We kind of had, I wouldn't consider it that, because it was across the board. Everybody went through it, but we had something called the Recruit Sustainment Program.
Yeah.
And that was prior to going to basic and all that stuff. So you were assigned a unit, an RSP unit, that you would go to and train with. And you would train just like they did in basic, and you wouldn't, it was all just the basic fundamentals, marksmanship and stuff like that. You wouldn't, when I did it, we didn't go down to the range or anything like that, but we did land nav, and we did rappelling, and all the basics, that you would kind of go through, how to fold, Ranger
Get those hospital
stuff
corners on your cot.
Yeah,
well,
right.
The hospital corner thing, that was a little bit more challenging, because when we stayed, we just, because we stayed overnight, for a few nights, and
is there a difference between hospital corners and mental hospital corners?
Yeah, the mental hospital quarters belong to the Marines.
Yeah,
which I was almost one. So,
but yeah, it was it's kind of like that. I mean, you kind of get the basic fundamentals of it, and you get mentally and physically prepared for going to training, and then once you're out of training, you kind of go back to RSP until you are sent directly to your unit. So that all depends on how you sign up and things like that. So,
well, the interesting aspect to it is they've kind of reevaluated their views on PT in training.
Yeah.
And I don't think they made this change in boot camp. They made the change in the pre-boot camp, and they realized there is a complete different algorithm to weight loss within 90 days than standard basic training. And one of the things they actually focus on more, because obviously basic training, they're trying to get you conditioned, plus get you to operate functionally in insanity, trying to create the confusion insanity of perhaps a battle scenario. That's why they have all the craziness going on.
Stress inoculation.
But one of the things they do at the fat camp, their words, not mine, is they actually require them to get more sleep, because modern day fitness studies shows that weight loss and sleep go hand in hand.
Yes,
and you cannot lose weight healthily when you're sleep deprived. And so they actually make them get more sleep. An interesting thing is the Army code, according to this 60 Minutes thing I watched, they can't tell their guys what to eat and what not to eat in fat camp. They got to give them their freedom. So they have food on a color scale. I think it was like green, yellow, red. Red's, it's not horrible, but it's the highest caloric intake out of everything else.
It's all the fried food and carbs.
And it's not quite that bad, but out of the options are given them, they can't just say, here's kale and lettuce, go sick. They got to give them some other options, but they kind of work on their life choices. And, okay, I'm going to eat 2 greens and a yellow for breakfast, but maybe 1 green, a red, and 3 greens and a red for dinner. So they can kind of calculate, take responsibility for the action, still have the freedom to consume what they want a little bit, but kind of learn how to do it in moderation.
Draw 4, motherfucker.
Now something like that makes sense to do that stuff like pre-boot camp or basic training or whatever, because you have to, you're being trained, mentally and physically in those environments and in those situations, because when you're in the field or when you're downrange, sleep doesn't fucking exist.
Yeah.
I mean, Ron can attest to that even, fine to do that for losing weight, but I hope they keep that where it needs to be and don't try to implement that any further on doar in the training process.
I'm sure they do. I think the reason they phase them into it is because these are going to be people who already have a deficit in a physical fitness regiment and self motivation. And so I think it's kind of like pulling that Band-Aid off slowly, so they kind of get them to that precipice before they get into boot camp. Because I mean, let's be honest, but you know better than I do. But when you enlist in the armed services, most people will start eating righter before going into boot camp, because they said, okay, at boot camp you got to weigh X amount. So you'll see the young kids run around your neighborhood with their army shirt on them, you know, the recruiting shirt, and they're doing their pre-boot camp fitness. And so they're kind of the fat camp. I think they're kind of bringing them up to hopefully the level which the other pre-boot camp are doing their physical fitness, so that when they go into boot camp, that extra sleep will be taken away. But they don't want them to go into boot camp completely fucking annihilated because they just had 90 days of no sleep and shitty meals. So I think they're kind of bringing them, they're bringing them to that transition point in a quickest way but healthiest way possible, so that they don't go into boot camp at a physical deficit, because then they'll just wash out.
Yeah, and that's an interesting process too, because if you fail any part of any testing or anything like that, or your marksmanship or anything, you get rolled. And you end up getting rolled to the next class. And when you get rolled to the next class, that's another 8 weeks added on top of what you already just did. And if you don't make the cut, I talked to guys when I was doing like cleanup rounds in like the commander's office and stuff like that, doing details, that they had been on base for 9 months trying to get out. Just waiting to get out.
Even if you fail, you don't get discharged. You just get rolled into another.
You keep rolling. Even
if you fail, like if you fail at marksmanship, and you don't get, I forget what the classifications are, but if you don't get the minimum, which I think is like maybe 30 or maybe 28 out of 40 or 32 out of 40 or something like that shots, and if you don't get those shots downrange and you fail marksmanship, then you end up getting rolled to the next class, and you have to do basic training basically all over again. Now, you have an advantage to an extent because you've already done all this shit, but
soldier must hit between 23 to 29 targets. Those who do not meet the minimum of 23 are considered unqualified.
Oh, it's 23. Okay.
Between 23 and 29.
Yeah, but where do they got to hit within the?
That's 100 yards, ain't it?
Yeah, but do you just hit the target, or do you have to hit like?
You've got 25 meters, 75 meters, I think, 150 meters, and then 300 meters. I think that's the scale. But I remember distinctly your 25 meters and your 300 meters. Your 300 meters were...
That's when you got to get the dope book out and everything, huh?
I mean, because the way that they teach you, because they tell you, don't focus on that Kentucky windage or anything like that. That's what they call it.
Yeah.
And you got to focus. You really got to they're very tedious about that kind of shit, about zeroing and grouping. And when you're trying to hit a 300 meter target, don't aim right directly at the head silhouette, aim above it and, account for drop and all that shit. So
your holdovers basically.
Yeah. Not to pat myself on the back, but I think I got 36 out of 40.
Nice.
On one of my last.
It was funny. We were talking about on the What's the Skull about the other day. We were talking about the Navy ice cream barge, where they spent $1 million making a barge to produce ice cream for apparently any naval ship during the war that was larger than a battleship already had onboard ice cream manufacturing facility. Who knew? But they spent $1 million to commandeer a concrete barge to push with a tugboat to make 500 gallons a day for ice cream for people on ships smaller than the size of a battleship. But I was looking at a photo, and it's a bunch of Marines, and they're sending around an Oerlikon. An Oerlikon was originally a Swedish manufactured gun at the end of World War I, and you see them on the battleships. They got the big-ass springs on the front, and then they have the steel plate for a little bit of flak protection for the gunner. And on it, as Mike was saying, Kentucky windage and all that, said, don't forget to lead the Jap. Meaning when you're shooting at those aircraft, you got to lead the target so they fly into it. You can't aim at the target. You got to kind of guess the speed in which they're traveling and lead it at X amount of distance so that they fly into the flak and hit it.
Yeah, you have to account for their speed, your windage, their windage, and then you
Altitude.
Have to adjust, 8, 12, 15 inches out ahead of what you're aiming at. And it's the same thing with, firing a rifle down range.
Saw a great meme that said iron sights is the gun equivalent to a standard transmission. As if people can't do it.
Yep.
With age comes experience. With experience comes wisdom. And as you all probably know, DeSantis has announced or is announcing tonight he's running for president. And everybody already knew this. No big deal. And
so but you just get the orange guy to step away.
And so, well, the problem is the Democrats and the orange guy, the MAGA Republicans, are going after DeSantis because they know that he's probably a better opportunity. So for the last few months, if you're paying attention to any news or
he's done some stupid stuff. It's like, why are you doing this now?
Exactly. And so you're seeing all these stories and shit. Oh, DeSantis is doing this. Well, some of the stuff they're pinning on him. It's policy been written, like the thing about, oh, DeSantis is made up where if you want to talk shit about the government, you have to register. No, that wasn't him. I read the story. It's another crazy Florida Republican that DeSantis supported a bill of his in the past. Didn't say he supported this bill, but because he supported another piece of legislation this nutball wrote in the past, they're putting the headlines that DeSantis has came up with this bill where you have to register to talk shit about. And so
it seems like you should be able to sue for
defamation
of character on this, something like that.
Did you see the video? Who was it that posted it on Twitter? Shit, what the hell's his name? He got fired from Fox.
Oh, Tucker Carlson.
Tucker, yeah. Did you see the video that he posted about
DeSantis?
No, not
Trump?
DeSantis, but like it was his comeback video.
Oh, about the media and how you can't, yeah.
Yeah. And, I was thinking about that. I mean,
hold that thought because that can go to a whole other discussion. Literally, put a pin on that because we'll get to that here in a minute because that'll lead into kind of what I'm talking about too. And so you see all these news articles. Oh, DeSantis is wants to use toxic waste to pave the roads. Well, apparently we have a lot of phosphate mines, and there's some residual materials left over to processing that could be used as aggregate or whatever in blacktop. And some people say it's radioactive, and so of course they got to put that in the smear campaigns. And so you see it come from both ways. But then I saw this story, and it said because one of the things that's happening, NAACP has put out travel warnings to people because Florida's so racist, and the LGBT community put out travel restrictions because we're anti-gay, but we have Key West, Orlando, and South Beach, which are the three most high outside of California, probably the biggest population of openly gay, gay communities, which we don't care in Florida. We welcome them. So it's so funny that they say all this insanity. But on that same line, I think it was Rolling Stone or the like. Maynard from Tool does drag show during performance in Florida as an FU to DeSantis' new anti-LGBT blah 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 policies. And I'm sure you're a young cat, maybe you're in 2030s. Your first question is who's Maynard from Tool, but after you look it up, you're like, yeah, stick it to the man. But see, I'm an old fuck. I've seen some things. I've been some places. And I was at Lollapalooza in 1997. And even though I was at the back of the Polaris Amphitheater in Lollapalooza in 1997 in Columbus, Ohio, I saw Tool, and up on stage, I was like, why is Maynard dressing like Madonna? That's right, he had a face painted white, long ponytail, a bustier with boobs. So nice try. I'm sure, yes, he probably said some things about DeSantis, but in my mind, when a performer is doing something that they've been doing for the last 30 years as part of their performance art, it's not exactly a fuck you to DeSantis. And if you actually go Google Tool 1997, you'll see photos of him and all the Lollapaloozas wearing the bustier, the fake boobs, and the ponytail. So it's like, it's a nice try, but he's been doing this shit for 30 years, so it doesn't count.
Well, I was discussing this with a coworker today, kind of on the same basis, where if you think about like comedians are the perfect example. The comedians out there will say the most racist, homophobic, transphobic, anti-government kind of fucking shit. And, you got people out there that take them so seriously, but you can't take them seriously. They're just, it's all joking. And, we were talking about stuff like, people say stuff 30 years ago, like Eddie Murphy or something like that. And at that time, those things were acceptable to say. So you can't condemn somebody now
You can't
for
cancel the
something that,
past.
yeah, right. You can't condemn somebody now for something that they did or said 30 years ago, even.
So, are you giving me a pass as a 45-year-old white guy who grew up in the 90s that I'm allowed to sing every word to DMX's Rough Riders anthem at the gym out loud? Or do I still need to stop at the first word of the first verse and the first line?
No, you probably still need to stop at the first word, at the first verse, on the first line.
Yeah.
Based on today's standards, yes.
Yeah, it's funny. Every once in a while, I don't know why, but every once in a while on Pandora, an edited version of a song will pop up. And that's not a good one to bleep out because every other syllable is bleeped out. I mean, literally, the first word. If you don't believe me, Google Rough Riders Anthem by DMX. The very first. And I wore that CD out in the 90s. I drove around my windows down singing every goddamn word of that song. But now if I would admit that, I could be canceled because he admitted to saying that.
Well, you just
it was in our music.
Yeah.
You're going to get canceled now.
It's music, but here's the problem. You're a middle-aged
cisgendered
white man, basically claiming that you've said something like that. So now you're the asshole.
But here's a fun thought experiment. I want to find one of these AI photo generators that generates pictures based off of what you type in. And I want to type up Gordon Mine's childhood. We're going to leave out the city and state where we grew up, but we're going to put in all the things that we've witnessed and experienced.
Can't say mobile home, though.
No, just low-income housing.
There you go.
Welfare, food stamps, cheese, spousal abuse. As I got into high school, I had a friend of mine, his brother's gunned down on OSU campus. Moved down here. Carrie's mom's house was shot up in a drive-by shooting.
Got a buddy that was murdered.
I have a buddy that was murdered. I have another friend that was shot. And what I'm getting to is if I wrote our childhood into one of those image generators, I can almost guarantee you 83% of the visual representation of that child would probably be drawn in a minority figure because the way the media want people nowadays to think that if you're white, you have privilege. But once again, if you're typing in our childhood, just the facts into this generator, I can guarantee you that the child image representing me or Gordon would probably be some minority base because the truth is most of that shit is more based on income level and less on race.
You know, it'd be creepy as if you did that and our AI generated version of what we look like popped up.
Yeah.
That'd be scary.
Well, it's kind of like this. We grew up skateboarding. We grew up poor. We grew up having beater cars. How many times did you get pulled over and have the cops sit you in the back of their car because they thought you had drugs in your car until you got to a station in life where you bought your first brand new car?
You once.
It happened to me in California for driving poor in Newport Beach. Happened to me in Kentucky when Johnny and I got pulled over. What I'm saying is when we had beater cars with skateboard stickers and band stickers, we got treated the same way with the assumption of guilt and what are you up to? Because let's be honest, poor people tend not to drive with car insurance. I had car insurance off and on for the first 15 years. I couldn't afford insurance consistently, so it's probably a good assumption on their part. And oftentimes,
out of those instances, how many times did you have a Juggalo sticker on your car or Hatchet Man?
every fucking time. Even when I
it.
got pulled, well, once again, it's a perception of the police based on what I looked like, the representation of my car, and what I put out there. Meaning,
Juggalos were on an FBI watch list.
Yeah, up until I got my Cavalier, not my Cavalier, my Colorado. Even when I first moved down here, I took the 3M reflective sticker that we used on ambulances and made a Hatchet Man and put it on the back of the Firebird. And one of the last times I got pulled over, the cop made reference to that sticker. He was surprised seeing me because now I'm in my mid to late 30s, and I don't dress the same way as I did. And not only that, but I'm an OG Juggalo. We didn't dress like the crazy fucks did in the mid 2000s. You look like fucking Marilyn Manson dropouts. We had a little more class. Just a little bit.
Wow, can you actually say that?
Yes, if you look at the fat kids and the horrible jinkos and just the goofy ass clothes and the, like 2008, like look up 2008 Juggalo and then go back and watch Chicken Hunting from 1996. Completely different fashion sense.
Did they have Jenko jeans in 2008?
Well, they wore their knockoff equivalents of them. They look like fat goth kids
at a mall the other day,
and they're all having the fishnets on and all that shit. And go back and watch Chicken Hunting, the original video, and it just looks like a bunch of skateboard kids.
Speaking of fashion, I was at Target last weekend. Saw a sign in the women's section that said 94 is baggy. So, yes.
I was my trip to Publix tonight because I took a shower after the gym. I put on my Hurley sweatpants, and I went full 1985 Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. I pulled my
have a fanny pack on too?
No, I pulled my sweatpants up over my calves and right under my knees. I think we wore them back in the 80s and mid 90s from Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey.
Well, you probably blended right in now.
Almost look like how you wore. This gonna be problematic.
No, he just needs pit vipers.
You know the pants young boys wore in the mid 1800s that came below their knees and have a word that starts with an N.
Pantaloons?
And ends with it. Knickers?
Knickers?
Yes.
Bloomers.
I wear my sweatpants like that. I almost like I look like Oliver Twist. But yeah. So as I was saying earlier, the media's coming out, NAACP is coming out with their anti-travel advisory to Florida because, it's like fucking Jim Crow South down here. We're just horrible to minorities, which I want to find some time to do some TikTok videos where I just run into random minorities in the street and say, how do you feel living in Florida? And my suspicion is going to be like, I'm like, what the fuck are they talking about? We're fine down here. But Florida is really good at trolling.
Make sure you have a case of Bud Light in your hand. You may get a different answer.
Florida is doubling down on their trolling. So after 3 special interest groups put out travel advisories telling people not to come to Florida, Rick Scott, of all people, Senator Rick Scott, Dateline. Where's the Dateline on this website? I don't know. Channel News 8 out of Tampa, I think. Dateline, we'll just say today. No, it is today. No, yesterday. Dateline, May 23rd. Senator Rick Scott issues travel advisories warning Florida is openly hostile towards socialists.
Well,
this is fantastic.
Openly hostile to all socialists. But.
Tampa, Florida. Republican Senator Rick Scott issued because they're trolling, formal travel advisory Tuesday warning that the state of Florida is openly hostile towards socialists, communists, and those who enable them. In an announcement, Scott said that the advisory is directed response to the Biden administration's attempt to erase capitalism and the system that has brought prosperity to Florida. Before traveling to Florida, please understand that the state of Florida devalues the marginalized and contributions of the challenges faced by socialists and others who work in the Biden administration, the advisory states. Scott added, any attempt to spread the, quote, oppression of poverty and socialism always brings would be rebuffed by Florida residents. The former governor Florida governor turned senator said attempts to spread socialism in North Florida would be met with laughter and mockery. He added that the situation would be, quote, far from dangerous, quote, in parts of Central and South Florida, whose residents learned, quote, the very good point, in parts of Central and South Florida, whose residents learned the horrors of socialism from Cuba, Venezuela, and other Central and South American immigrants. Couldn't be further from the truth.
I tell you, I've met a lot of people here from Cuba and also from Eastern Bloc nations who were there during the communist and socialist regimes. And every one of them, except for the one, because there's always one, who says it wasn't that bad, said, yeah, it's horrible.
I'm guessing the one who said it wasn't that bad is about 28 and a half.
No, she's our age. But she left when she was young.
Well, there you go. Apparently none of her parents were ever taken as political prisoners.
Apparently not.
Speaking of change in policy, this little segment we call News of the No Shit. Positive marijuana test following workplace accidents, the highest of 25 years.
Is this nationwide or?
The year 2022 marked the year that Drug Test Administration, after workplace accidents showing positive results for marijuana, reached the highest level in 25 years, according to the
Shit's in your
recent
system for 30 days.
the recent Quest Diagnostics analyst. The Quest Diagnostics system unveiled Thursday showed the positive marijuana urine test after workplace accidents among the general U.S. workforce hit 7.3% last year. In 2021, it was significantly lower at, it rose 7.3 last year, and in 2021, it was significantly lower at 6.7. For the entire analysis, Quest Diagnostics looked at more than 10.6 million drug test results. The results, which had a time frame of January to December 2022, came from urine, hair, and oral fluid drug test. The higher percentage of the correspondence with the move by some states to make usage of marijuana legal, the workplace drug testing provider suggested. Once again, coming from the news of No Shit. What I don't get now,
who would have the type of person who would have would benefit from the hair sample version, because it basically locks in your hair for however long your hair is.
there's people with that disease where they have absolutely no body hair.
Alopecia.
Yeah, alopecia patients.
Go for it.
It's crazy because, down here in Florida, it's not recreational yet. It's medical. But kind of the
Medically recreational.
the agreement we all agreed upon was we're going to treat marijuana the same as alcohol. But I don't know as many people that openly drink on the way to work. I cannot believe how many times I'm rolling down the gas station or driving down the street heading to work in the morning, and people are just clam baking their cars.
Oh, yeah.
But here's my question, and I would love to know if this has ever happened to anybody. If it has, email us, info@d-410.com. I have been behind people where my AC's on blast, and now my car smells like I just burnt one down. It's like, has anybody ever been pulled over by a cop, and the cop's like, what's going on in here? Nothing, sir. That was the car in front of me. Sure it was. And then you got to go through the whole process of being sat in their car for 20 minutes as they look for your car, which has nothing in it. But it happens so many times where I'm walking through a parking lot or driving down the street and just people are just clam baking it out. It's like, holy shit.
I got searched one time.
Did you?
In North Carolina. I was driving. Where the hell was I driving? I was driving to a buddy's girlfriend's house or something like that, dropping her off or whatever. And it was me, my buddy, and his uncle. And I didn't know it at the time, but his uncle had like a little roach in his pocket or something like that. And
druggy.
Up there, everybody drives a little over the line, kind of going through the hills and the mountains and whatnot.
Yeah, you don't maintain your lane when you're going through snake turns in the hills.
No. And I did that, and it's a 2-lane road, and I didn't see anybody around me. And all of a sudden, there's a freaking cop behind me. I was like, what the hell? Where'd he come from? So
and furthermore, I'm sure you passed 13 signs with soft shoulder warnings.
Yeah. And he pulls me over, and he starts talking to me. I was young. I think it's like the first year or two that I had my license.
Mm-hmm.
And pulls me over, starts going through the rigmarole.
So what you doing?
Gets all of us out of the car. Starts talking to each one of us, trying to get the story straight and all that stuff and whatnot. I just told him, like, we're just going back to the house. And then another fucking car pulls up, opens up my shitty little fucking Ford Explorer that I had, opens up the back hatch, had to hold it up with a damn broomstick, hit the cop in the head because he didn't know that. And when you're young and all that, my car was just full of junk.
Yeah,
there's all kinds of shit in there all over the place, and it was a beater car, so it was like whatever. So they're searching through it and just kind of lifting stuff, and it's like they're not making a mess because it's already a shithole. And they finally came to me and they're like, well, we smelled marijuana. And I was like, I don't have any of that shit on me. What are you talking about? And they ended up letting me go, but I did get a ticket for, was it a ticket or I may have got a warning for being left of center?
Yeah.
Of the center line or something like that. But yeah.
I was laughing because Gordon had this piece of shit Dodge Omni. And he had a a spell where sometimes that car would not be the cleanest. And we were coming back from somewhere. I think we had spent the day with my dad on his boat.
Indian Lake.
And at the time, I was actively involved in high school after school recreational activities that basically we took freshmen and middle schoolers and, try to teach them how to get along without basing each other on financial status and drug use and all that. So I was actively like in a anti-drug program, and I even had my shirt on. And Gordon's alternator took a shit. No, it wasn't Dare. It was a youth something or other. But Gordon's battery was dying, and his alternator was causing problems, and he was concerned with his headlights not working. And so we were driving, and he saw a cop a couple of blocks down, so he hung a right. Well, the cops saw him and thought we were being suspicious, and so they pulled down, and we made a U-turn, was heading out, and they pulled us over. And so they start giving us a riot act. You have any drugs in the car?
No.
And I'm showing my shirt. And Gordon's like, no. And they're like, do you mind if we look? And as he says that, his partner goes, shines a flashlight in the back of Gordon's seat. And the cop said, fuck it, your car's too dirty. We're not going to waste our time. And they kicked us free because they didn't want to dig through his pile of shit on the back floorboards. It was fucking hilarious. Gordon's probably like, thank God I had a dirty car. But
no, I was fine.
I got pulled over, and as I was alluding to earlier, I got pulled over for driving while poor in Newport Beach. I've told this story before, but real quick, it was Sunday. I was going to school for computers.
Hang on 1 second. I'll be right back.
Okay. I was going to school for computers, and we went to my beloved Baja Fresh in Newport Beach, which is right down the street from Irvine, because why not? Hot women in Newport Beach. I'm sorry, Orange County. Newport. Wasn't Huntington, is Newport. And so I'm in my sweet-ass 1992 Ford Escort LX with my Jimmy Matchbox and Monoxide Child stickers on the side windows, my Hatchman on the back. And it's one of those sweet-ass Ford Escorts with the automatic seatbelt that goes over your shoulder. Remember when that was like cutting-edge feature? Ooh, your car's got automatic seatbelts. It's like Tron. It's like the future, man.
Exactly.
Except for...
But you basically had your car labeled, pull me over.
Yeah, and what made it worse is, as they tend to do, as cars get older and you buy them used at buy here, pay here lots because you're broke as fuck, sometimes things don't work, such as the track for the automatic seatbelt. And so my seatbelt stopped right at the elbow of the door jamb. And so I had to release the shoulder mechanism, and I would wear the lap strap. And we were sitting at a stoplight, and there was a Lexus SUV in front of me with a busted out taillight, and like had, people do that half-ass red tape job, which ends up cracking. And so there's just a spiderweb red tape. And I had a guy from school with me in the passenger seat. I said, the cop was behind me. It was a red light. I was like, I hope that cop pulls over this SUV in front of us. Light turns green. Cop car lights come on. I laugh. And, as I'm pulling over, I'm moving over thinking he's going to pull over the Lexus. He pulls me over. What are you doing? Where are you going? Long story short, driving while poor. He got us out of the car, searched the car for drugs, which obviously he didn't find. Now, at the time when he went to school for A+, MCP, and all that stuff, they gave you a cute little fake Naugahyde cardboard binder that had a floppy disk in it for your F-disk and your DOS and screwdrivers and just tweezers and basic bullshit. He pops open the hatchback next to my speakers. He pulls out the little black book, little black case. He looks at us like, yeah, I got you fuckers. He unzips it, and floppy disks fall out, tweezers, a little tube of screws, the screw in the PCI Express slots and shit. Long story short, he comes back, looks at us and says, there's a Baja Fresh in Irvine, stay out of Newport Beach, and kicked us loose. Christ. All because of the appearance of our car and the stickers on them.
That's insane.
Yep. So I get where some people think that, they get treated a certain way based on maybe their skin tone or whatever, but a lot of it's just based on your financial
being
status.
Young and financial status.
And the appearance of which you make your car look.
Yes, how you decorate your car. So you saw speaking of cars, you saw the videos of the new Tacoma.
Uh-huh.
What I will say with that, because I actually had a video of my generation or the third generation Tacoma next to it, is it still looks like a Tacoma. Unlike the Tundra, which actually when the new Tundra came out, I was like, man, that looks, when I pulled up, because especially the line along the waistline, I was like, man, that actually looks more like a Tacoma than it does
Really?
a
Because I
Tundra,
think
just
the new
bigger.
Tacoma looks more like a Tundra.
Well, what I'm saying is when the new Tundra came out, to me, I thought it looked a lot more like a Tacoma, Tacoma than it did the previous Tundra. Because if you look at the waistline on it, it's got that crease. And the new Tacoma has it. Now, the new Tacoma has the grill that's much like the older one. You know, so it's got that. When you sit them next to each other, they look, you could see that it's still a Tacoma.
They have what is that called? Like
If you put the Tundra,
Trail
the new
Runner.
Tundra next to your Tundra, they can look completely different.
Yeah, they got what's that? The Trail Runner or whatever, the Trail Ranger.
No. Trail Hunter.
The Trail Hunter has the extended mud flares and all that. It's a bad looking truck. But if you had
So is the Pro.
if you would mount a 30 cal machine gun in the back of that fucking thing, it would look like the Warthog from Halo because all the sharp corners and the stance of it.
Well, what they've done, and I don't know, they've actually taken the rear wheel, and pushed it back 4 inches, which gives them a smaller approach angle and departure angle, but it also lengthens the wheelbase, and I kind of like the wheelbase where it sits.
Well, if you lengthen the wheelbase, don't you run the risk of when people are off-roading,
High centering?
Yeah, high
Breakover?
center.
Yep. But what's interesting about that Trail Hunter is it comes with full skid plates all the way back through the rear diff.
What's the sticker on that sumbitch? 80 grand?
Who knows? That they're not announced yet.
Yeah, that's going to be
The
good.
only way I would consider getting a new Tacoma, because they are bigger inside, is if I say, hey, this is what I got. This is what I'm putting down to pay off my Tacoma and to buy it outright. And they say, well, you want a new one? I said, only if I can get it for the current payments I'm paying now.
Yeah.
And not as a lease.
When I had my 18 Tacoma, I was at Toyota getting my free oil change as part of the Toyota Care.
The 2-year deal.
And they had a beautiful 19 RDP Off-Road Pro with that year's blue limited edition paint. Had all the suspension packages on it, everything. This thing was as off-road pimped out as you could get off the Toyota floor without taking it to a specialist. The sticker on that fucker was $65,000 for a Tacoma. I was like, holy shit.
Oh, that was a Tacoma?
Yeah, it was a blue Tacoma.
Yeah.
I remember sending you posting a picture on
I
Facebook
thought
back then. I was like,
yeah, it's the TRD Pro. So what's interesting, what they've done this year, even with the Pro and the Trail Hunter, is they went out and got with ARB, which is a major off-road aftermarket company for the bumpers, the skid plates, probably the inflator that's in the there's a compressor built into the Trail Hunter edition for when you deflate and reinflate your tires. Just kind of handy to have.
But don't
And then
you
they
kind of require bead locks for that, or no?
You're okay down to about 15, 20 pounds of pressure. After that, yeah, you do need bead locks.
Have you seen what they did to the 4Runner?
They haven't done it yet. Those are just
Renderings.
renderings based off the new Tacoma.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's what if Katina eventually gets rid of her car, and in the next 10 years it'll probably be all electric anyway. She may get a 4Runner, depending on how things are and how we are
Yeah.
financially.
Or,
No, I
or
like it.
how the standard standing of the country and our currency stands.
Oh, absolutely. Now, what I will give Toyota credit for is all the way up through the TRD off-road, you can get a 6-speed manual.
Yeah, that's nice.
You can't in the hybrid versions, which is what the Pro and the Trail Hunter come in.
Which you figure would be more standard amongst Japanese and cars of that side of the planet, because a lot more of those developing countries are people tend to drive manual transmissions because they used to be cheaper back in the day than automatics.
They don't meet the they actually get a little less power and a little these days and a little less fuel efficiency.
Yeah.
But yeah, the TRD Pro and the Trail Hunter only come in the hybrid. They're all 2.4 liter 4-cylinders, twin turboed across the board, or turboed across the board. So the 6-cylinder is now officially gone.
You've ever heard the phrase when art impersonates life or life impersonates art?
Yep.
You're a fan of Breaking Bad, right?
Yep. Drove right through Albuquerque too.
Remember the episode where they hijacked the train while it was parked on the bridge?
Yes.
It took 30 tons of methylamine.
Mm-hmm.
You guys up to date on what's going on in the ammonium nitrate market?
I think there's some disappearing car that disappeared out of some cars.
Art imitating life, or life imitating art. And people we're just sitting around waiting.
What's going to go off?
That's what was basically used on the Oklahoma City bombing.
Mm-hmm.
30 tons of aluminum nitrate disappeared from a desert-bound train. Mm-hmm. Very reminiscent of Breaking Bad. An estimated 30 tons of highly volatile aluminum nitrate disappeared from a rail car traveling last month between Wyoming and the Mojave Desert in California. Frequently used as fertilizer, the compound is also infamous for the role in the deadly 1995 Oklahoma City bombing, as well as the massive 2020 explosion in Beirut, Lebanon, that killed over 200 people. In this instance, however, multiple reports indicate Union Pacific Railroad officials believe the cargo accidentally leaked out of the bottom gate of the rail car during its 2-week journey across the West. Now, wouldn't that be easy to prove?
You'd think so.
I'm sure that amount of ammonium
life is of it.
But even still, obviously it would break down. Let's say
residue somewhere.
Let's say it was like a crystal version, it would break down in the rain, but the amount of ammonium nitrate in the soil would be easily detectable.
Yeah, one would think.
And if that was to happen, where is the EPA fine?
Got it all.
What sort of EPA fine would be for spilling 30 tons of ammonium nitrate, even though it's just going in the soil below the railroad track? But still, I'm sure some of that railroad track travels over drinkable water.
You sure it wasn't the coyote with a big funnel that said Acme?
Yeah, right. According to the New York Times, Union Pacific spokesperson explained it was not a coyote with a giant Acme funnel, but that the fertilizer transported in pellet form within a covered hopper car akin to coal shipments is designed for ground application and quick soil absorption and should pose no risk to public health and the environment. The shipment belonged
They're going to have a lot of weeds in the middle of their tracks.
Shipment belonged to an explosive manufacturer, Dymo Noble, whose representative also told the Times that they do not currently suspect criminal or malicious activity.
We expect it was an oopsie.
Union Pacific is reportedly in the early stages of its investigation, while the Federal Railroad Administration and the California Public... if it turns out that shit soaked into California... Gavin Newsom's like, payday time, bitches. We're going to sue the shit out of the railroad company because those cats are so goddamn broke. They're just waiting. They're waiting for a new reason to sue somebody. How you feeling, Mike? You got bubble guts? That's all right. So hopefully no one did steal that.
Calling everybody out tonight.
Hopefully no one stole that and we don't see some danger going on.
Mm-hmm.
And happiness comes out of that.
Happiness.
Hey, did you see that fuck no way is on a show now?
Oh, really?
Really?
Yep. It's called
like an automotive show or something?
I literally just...
It's going to be like one of those shitty life hack shows.
No, it's not. And now I think we're going to know what he does for a living. It is called... Stand by. I have to play it with the whole thing is an ad. I sent it to you, Don. Basically for the show. And it's going to be called... Here it comes. Almost there on May the 17th at 8 o'clock, which has passed. It is called Bush Wreck Rescue.
Oh, it's funny you bring that up. So he's doing one of those like
on Discovery,
horrible fucking reality fake recovery shows. Remember Gator Toe?
Matt's off-road recovery is not fake.
No, but they used to have, what was it, Gator Toe? It was that fake-ass tow. Then they had Parking Wars. Remember Parking Wars? Where they followed around the ticket writers in Philadelphia?
Yep.
And then they had another show. I was thinking about this the other day, and Mike, you probably don't know this. That show, Parking Wars and the Tow Wars, where they go around and repossess people's cars, that was all incorporated into a single pilot. It was the original name of the show is like Somebody Has to Do It, or it's a crappy job, something like that. The pilot actually had the tow truck people they followed around, which ended up going to be Tow Wars. The parking meters in Philadelphia, which went on to be Parking Wars, hence the similarity in names. Then they also followed around people who serve. You've been served. They serve you fucking court papers and shit.
Oh yeah,
because that's a horrible job. And the creme de la creme. I swear to God, I watched it. You can probably find it on YouTube somewhere. The fourth job that they had, they followed around Cape Coral code compliance officers because they got screwed. This is back during the height of the housing bubble for 2008. And you'd see them following the code compliance officer, and people drive by saying, fuck you, and honking at him and screaming at him. But yeah, it sucks so bad to be a Cape Coral code compliance enforcement officer in the mid-2000s that they included that in as a shitty job on the pilot for that show, which the show wasn't that great, which is why they took the 3 other jobs and broke them off into separate TV shows. But it's hilarious to know that fucking Cape Coral code compliance officers was featured on a show about shitty ass jobs that people should work.
I don't know if I'm looking it up real quick, and they're not saying his name on it. So I'm wondering if he was just on
a cameo. Episode. Yeah, he might be doing a cameo.
Maybe his ship broke down.
What? No way.
Because his name is
fuck's sake,
Sean Umscheid, and it is definitely up in Alberta.
Yep. How do you guys feel about AI? Is it the best tool ever? Or is this the second coming of the Terminator?
Be the end of the world. We are all going to. Yes, it is Skynet. It is Skynet.
Isn't it crazy how money drives people to want to participate in this, even to the fact that people are going to college to get degrees in AI? When Elon Musk and a former head guy from Google are coming out saying, we need to check this shit. Because keep in mind, Elon Musk donated money to OpenAI, who came out with ChatGPT.
Yep, and now he's like,
Billionaire Elon Musk and ex-Google CEO Eric Schmidt are stepping up warnings about their concerns about the rogue advance in artificial intelligence could be one day have a deadly consequence to humanity. Schmidt argued that AI is, quote, an external risk to humanity that could result in many, what is he, the fucking commandant of police academy? We had a very, 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 very... But yes, the police commandant from police academy said that it could be a result in a many people harmed or killed. And it becomes more advanced in the coming years, Musk compared the potential risk to the doomsday scenario from James Cameron's 1984 sci-fi film, The Terminator. Which makes sense because more and more people believe in Gordon and my belief that aliens are actually time travelers from the future trying to figure out when things went awry. So, we have AI and we have time travelers, so we're almost there. We just need to send Reese back to, no, we won't go down that wormhole because after Terminator 2, if Terminator 2 would have been successful, then John Connor would have never been born to begin with. Now this is fiction. Now this is fiction today, but reason is likely to be true, Schmidt added. And when that happens, we want to be ready to know how to make sure these are not, misused by evil people. And that's the thing. It's not like AI is just going to inherently turn evil. AI is as responsive as the person who programs them. All it takes is an evil asshole to program one, and Bob's your uncle. And so every day, I tell the young man at work, I'm glad I'll be dead before most of this shit happens, but you'll have to deal with it. Every day I get more and more happy that I was born in the late 1800s, or 1900s, as the kids say. But I don't know, man. It's weird. I will say, ChatGPT does definitely have its advantages.
Yeah, have you played with it at all?
Oh, I use it all the time. I actually used it to write 2 monologues for What's the Scuttlebutt last week. I'll just say, write me
better than you do.
I say, write me a monologue on this topic. Include this, this, and this, and it comes back. And then I say, okay, remove the line about this, add in this. And the reason I call it Chat GPT is it works as if you're talking to somebody, like you're dictating to your secretary. You have to talk to it in a chat type format, and it remembers your conversation. So you can go back to that conversation and be like, I don't like the line about this on paragraph 4 on page 5, and it'll rewrite that paragraph. It's pretty cool. And so, yeah, I use it quite a bit. If you look at the my Instagram and Facebook page, my post about mail call being a new feature on the What's the Scuttlebutt page, if you like, that writing doesn't sound like Don. No, that wasn't. That was Chat GPT. I had to type. I said, make me a social media post. I basically said, I want to say this. Actually, I pasted in there in quotes what I want to say. Then I just said, please write this in a social media post format. And then I deleted some of the lame terminology they use. But yeah, those posts are pretty much, I took my idea, put it in Chat GPT, and it put it out in a better formatted version so it doesn't sound like my dumbass is the one typing it up. And so it definitely has its benefits. You ever ask yourself, who can I sue?
No,
Why not? Everybody's suing.
I'm not that guy.
It's a sue happy world we live in.
What if you bought a Hyundai or a Kia and someone stole your car, Gordon? Who should be responsible
I would
for
never own a Hyundai or a Kia, so.
But if you did, you're coming up, you're in your 30s, you're struggling, you're getting by, you want a new car, you go out and buy yourself a Honda and a Kia, and someone steals it. Who's responsible for it getting stolen?
Right, you're dumbass for leaving it in the fucking driveway.
Possibly. Maybe the guy who stole it?
Well, duh.
No. You're so old-fashioned.
I know people are going after Hyundai.
Cleveland, Seattle, St. Louis, and at least 5 other cities have alleged that automakers did not install anti-theft technology to cut costs. The decisions that made cars easier to steal in their cities less safe. Officials said the lawsuit does not specify how much the cities want Kia and Hyundai to pay in damages.
They didn't have to disconnect key like your normal car does.
The vehicle doesn't have... Well, okay. Couldn't we speculate, hypothesize, or theorize that maybe TikTok and YouTube are just as responsible for making those videos where kids talk about how easily it is to steal those cars?
Yeah, but what point is freedom of speech? Okay, now you're just doing something illegal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now we can kind of go after you, you know?
But
you're literally showing people how to steal somebody's hard-earned vehicle.
But I don't remember Toyota getting sued. Toyota Camry for like 10 years was the most widely stolen car through in the country because it was...
That was a Civic, and so is the F-150, actually.
So it's just insane that this isn't a class action lawsuit. No, the cities are suing. We're going to sue you guys because your cars are easily stolen.
Do you know what they do with the stolen Hyundais and Kias?
They probably part them out.
They literally ditch them somewhere after they cut off the catalytic converters. They're stealing them for the catalytic converters.
That's fucking insane. Oh, that was the other thing. There was a video leading up to this lawsuit. It wasn't even this lawsuit. There's this fantastic video of AOC going after Hyundai and Kia. Tell me you've never worked on a car without telling me you never worked on a car. She said it was their fault for engineering the cars where the catalytic converters were easy to get to.
That's why Toyota Tacoma is one of the number one, is on the top 10 list for it, because it's easy to get to.
But where do you want to run your super hot environmental cleaning system? You want to run it right underneath the floorboard?
And to be quite honest, most cars have 2 or 3 of them on them now.
And they're not exactly easy to get to. They're easy if you're motivated by meth to get to, but the normal person would think that's a shitty job to climb under a fucking car in a driveway with a DeWalt Sawzall at 4 in the morning and lop that shit off.
And in older vehicles, they used to be in a more convenient location for people to steal them. But nowadays, they're putting them up, behind the front wheels and shit like that. And
if the engine's in sideways, they can put it on the in front of
they actually make I know for Tacoma specifically, they have a Cadillac Catalytic converter shield that you can put on to keep people from getting at it.
Have you seen the fun photos coming out of like California and Nevada from the mechanics where they'll have the car up on the lift, like rotate their tires, and they'll see like rebar welded around the catalytic converter and all this shit to slow people down.
Well, the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile was here in town and got lost its catalytic converter.
This is fucking ridiculous.
At my new shop, we had all of our box trucks gone.
But where are they taking them?
Well, that's the thing. They got to get these scrap yards on board.
Well, see, here in Florida, the scrap yards are treated and have to follow the same rules as pawn shops. When you go down,
everything's ID.
Yeah, ID, and here in Florida, they take your fucking thumbprint, and every single one
run it out of state then.
And every single one, they have to submit your receipt, what you traded in, and everything to the cops. Especially if you're bringing in like AC condensers, and you ever notice a stack of aluminum ladders at the scrapyard? Funny how those things always end up over there.
Because they're on the street.
But I think, meth heads are evolving, man. Like
they're turning into super meth heads now.
Yeah, because I've broken down a fucking catalytic converter before. It's not hard. You cut that bitch off, you take a damn post, jam it through the center of it, and break all that shit up, and then all you got to do is sift through it for the precious metals.
Welcome to Meth Made Easy with Mike here on the What's in Your Head podcast. Ba-ba-da-pow.
But that's the same thing with like motherboards and shit like that. Taking the gold pins and people scrap the shit out of old computer towers.
That's
and
what doesn't make sense to me. You know how long that takes to pull like a half a cunt hair's worth of gold out of a motherboard? It's like, dude, I spent 40 hours a week. You could have got a job working part-time as a door greeter at Walmart and made more money than what you made trading in that malted down material at that motherboard. You spent 8.5 hours to do one. It's like you're what is your time worth? What is your lungs worth? You're breathing that shit in. You spend all those hours melting it down. You take it to a scrapyard. And Gordon and I talked about this before. You see these guys that have these beat up trucks. They're out on trash every day. Go to different areas and they're the trash day, and they're just loading shit in their trucks and they're driving down. And as somebody who had to collect computers and shit, I got a wholesale account at Haul Scrap for all the shit I had to take down there. I would literally take truckloads of shit down there and walk out with $15-20. It's like, dude, what are you guys doing? You're probably barely making enough to cover your gas and your time. Just go out and get a basic ass job. You can make more money than driving 8 hours a day pulling people's trash out. I don't get it. You can't stop and drink in the middle of the day when you're working at Walmart. I guess that's the problem, and that's the truth of it. Oh, so a buddy of mine I used to go to hockey games with, called him John. He was the guy people laugh at us because I'd wear my Penguins jersey. He would wear his Flyers jersey. You guys aren't supposed to get along. He messaged me. He lives out in Denver now. He messaged me about an update in his family, and I haven't talked to him in a couple of years. How you doing? Fine. He's like, yeah, I said, you're in Denver, huh? He's like, yeah. I said, I hope you live far enough out to stay away from the kooks. He's like, I'm dead nuts in the middle of them all. He said, I was driving for Lyft for a short period of time. Because he lives in Denver, as someone who's going to walk amongst the public, Lyft made him watch a 35-minute video with follow-up examine how to make people feel inclusive and comfortable in your car, both in your car and in the community. I was
pretty crazy for a 1099 employee.
Yeah. I told him, I said, the hell with that noise. I said, I drove Uber for a short period of time during the pandemic because they were desperate and paying money. I said, the last time I did, I made no money. The only remotely funny thing happened to me is I got to drive home a very prominent lawyer who tends to put their family on TV commercials, whose son was shit-faced drunk after his graduation party, stumbling down the street on Fort Myers Beach, and had to drive him down south. And the kid was very proud of who his dad was. I said, other than that, nothing ever exciting happened. It just wasn't worth it, so I quit. But yeah, so State Farm has stopped accepting new customer applications for some kinds of Kias and Hyundais, citing a rise in cost. The irony of buying a low-budget car, you have to pay more in insurance. I guess it comes down to, do you want to buy a brand new Kia or a 5-year-old Camry at a used car lot.
Take the Camry any day.
Yeah, especially nowadays because cars last a whole lot longer than they used to could.
Yep.
Oh, before the show, I made a comment. They don't make shit like they used to. Anybody who grew up...
Ain't that the truth?
Well, it's the truth, but I had a realization as I said that, especially after Gordon mentioned the show Candy, which the houses look very similar to my house I'm sitting in right now, my 1960s chic den, drinking my bourbon and Diet Coke or regular Coke. But if you're 40, 50, 55, you're watching Candy, and you're like, my mom had that, my grandmother had that, my aunt had that. Yeah, they don't make shit like they used to because they used to make a minimum amount of shit that everybody had to buy. You didn't have the selection. So what you had was made by a select few manufacturers, and the shit did last, but you had a hell of a lot less selection. That's why you see the picture on Facebook of the white suede couch that had pictures of the orange mills and like river and covered bridges, and everybody in your family in the 70s and 80s had that fucking couch because there was only so many people making shit back then that everybody had at least something out of that house. So it's true. Oh, we just lost Gordon. It's a night of first. Usually it's my camera that drops out.
Huh.
And I was going to ask him if he's ready to do the news. But you have any well, since Gordon's gone, you got anything you want to wrap the show up with? You have some things you've been wanting to get off your mouth?
Yeah, I got a couple of things here. Let's see. I won't get into that. Boat stuff.
Boat stuff, sure.
I finally got the damn motor running on the boat, which is exciting. Next thing on the list to do for that is I got to get the wiring all done because I'm a psychopath. The boat probably is going to get moved from point A to point B, and we will be probably doing a lot more northern stuff as far as the boat and fishing and stuff like that. Probably going out of like Peace River and Charlotte Harbor and all that because not quite as much shit in the water up there as there is down here.
That's the benefit of kayak fishing. We don't have to worry about the nastiness clogging up our fucking filtration systems on our engines.
Yep. Other than that, let's see. We have a bachelor weekend coming up.
Woohoo! When's that?
That's sometime in October.
That ain't coming up. That's far out. Coming up to me is like June, July.
Give me a fucking break. You know as well as I do that this world spins a hell of a lot faster than it used to.
Yep.
And now for the What's in Your Head podcast TikTok lesson of the week.
This morning it was announced that the European Union has fined Meta a record $1.3 billion for violating EU privacy laws by transferring the personal data of Facebook users to the United States. While this is the largest fine ever levied like this by the EU, what makes it even more interesting is that during all of this, Meta has also been lobbying the U.S. government to ban TikTok, insinuating that ByteDance is doing what Meta has been shown to already be doing repeatedly. And this isn't even the first time Zuckerberg's company has agreed to pay fines for this kind of thing. Last December, Meta agreed to pay $725 million in connection to the Cambridge Analytica scandal. And while Meta didn't admit to any wrongdoing, it did say that it's revamped its approach to privacy over the years, though apparently not. This morning's announcement is just another example of how U.S. lawmakers are actually more interested in villainizing TikTok, the platform that lets people communicate and spread information in ways never before seen, while those same publicly elected lawmakers protect Meta, because even though they have actually been shown to do what TikTok is only accused of, politicians can directly benefit from Facebook's practices. Remember how many political ads you saw on Facebook and how targeted it all was? How many of those ads have you seen on TikTok? And that's what our leaders seem so scared of, the fact that they cannot control what you see or pay to get themselves in front of you. People like me can't reach the masses on Meta platforms without paying the fees. And that's by design, so only the chosen few who can afford to pay can decide what the public actually gets to see and hear.
And this has been the What's in Your Head podcast TikTok lesson of the week.
And if the ending part of that sounds familiar, it's because when I started going on TikTok, I said it was because I got tired of putting all this time and effort and posting shit on Facebook and Instagram, even though I have like 1,000, 1,500 viewers, and Facebook come back saying, hey, 12 people saw this, but if you pay us $10, we'll make sure 200 people see it. And so, yes. And it's amazing when you actually look to see how many politicians own stock in Meta. It all falls in line. But back to you, Mike.
I'm lost now.
I knocked this train right off the track. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up.
I got nothing to follow up that lesson with.
That's all right. I got something to follow that up with, and that is bedtime.
I went from Bachelor Weekend to your TikTok lesson of the week, and then next on my list was fishing stuff.
We'll hit the fishing stuff next weekend. Gordon's internet logged out. He dropped off. I want to thank each and every one of you for your continued support. Please head over to what'sinyourhead.com or d-410.com and click on that Patreon link. Sign up and subscribe. And if you haven't done so yet, please head over to YouTube and like and subscribe there. Watch our videos. It doesn't cost you a thing. It'll go a long way to help us what we do here. For myself, Gordon, and Mike, we will talk to you all next week.
This has been a Digital 410 production.